Hello everyone and welcome back to The Lost Planeswalker. You're here with me, Jesse, The Lost Planeswalker. And today is day 3 of Fallout spoilers. We got the rest of the cards from Hail Caesar, and in addition, we did get some spoilers for some of the new cards from the mutant deck. So I'm very excited to show those off today. In addition, we got a ton of great reprint cards and land cards. And the way I'm going to structure this video, just so everybody knows, is all the brand new stuff right up front, and then I'm going to quickly run through all of the reprinted cards, just so everybody can see those. So let's jump right in and look at the brand new cards with Aradesh the Founder, Battle of Hoover Dam, and Boomer Scrapper. Aradesh the Founder is 2 and a white legendary creature human soldier with enlist. Whenever a creature you control attacks, if it enlisted a creature this combat, the creature that attacked gains double strike until end of turn. If that creature's power is 4 or greater, draw a card. Aradesh is a pretty cool card. Enlist is a neat mechanic that I believe came from Dominaria United, and I really haven't seen any new cards about it, so it was interesting to see this one here. In addition, giving any creature you basically enlist double strike if its power of 4 or greater is awesome. This effect is definitely going to keep, your opponents from wanting to block, because double strike just means they deal double the damage. And at 8 damage, basically, with power 4 or more, at 8 as a minimum, that seems pretty good. Battle of Hoover Dam is an enchantment that says, as Battle of Hoover Dam enters the battlefield, choose NCR or Legion. NCR, at the beginning of your end step, return target creature card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield with a finality counter on it. Legion, whenever a creature you control dies, put 2+1/+1 counters on target creature you control. Honestly, those are both kind of pretty good. I do like the NCR version much better. Legion, putting 2+1/+1s on a creature, not really my gameplay strategy, but this could be helpful. And Boomer Scrapper is 1 black-red creature human soldier. Whenever Boomer Scrapper enters the battlefield or attacks, you lose 1 life and create a junk token. Whenever a token you control leaves the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on Boomer Scrapper. This is quite a good card. Artifacts are such an important and heavily played strategy in this game. And not only artifacts, but creature tokens as well, that there's any number of decks where this would fit right in and become a big threat very quickly. Next up, we have Butch Delora Tunnel Snake, Colonel Autumn, and Desdemona Freedom's Edge. Butch Delora Tunnel Snake is 1 in a black legendary creature human rogue with menace. Tunnel Snake's rule: whenever Butch Delora Tunnel Snake attacks, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn for each other rogue and or snake you control. 1 in a black, put a menace counter on another target creature. It becomes a rogue in addition to its other types. Butch here is actually pretty good. I could see you pairing this up with a ton of cards that want to attack your opponents or deal damage to them, and being able to put menace on a creature for just 1 in a black seems really good and helpful to do that. Colonel Autumn, 1 white black legendary creature human soldier with lifelink and exploit. So exploit says whenever this creature enters the battlefield, you may sack a creature. Other legendary creatures you control have exploit, and whenever a creature you control exploits a creature, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Being able to buff up your board pretty reliably by just playing legendary creatures seems really good. If you can generate a ton of creature tokens, you can just buff up your entire board by just sacking fodder to do so. So I like this guy. I think this could be a really, really good strategy. And Desdemona Freedom's Edge, 2 red white legendary creature human rogue with vigilance. Whenever Desdemona Freedom's Edge attacks target creature, card in your graveyard that's an artifact or that is mana value 3 or less gains escape until end of turn. The escape cost is equal to its mana cost +2, plus exile 2 other cards from your graveyard. This is a pretty unique deck. I'm not really sure how you build this right away. Obviously, you can get back your artifact creatures from your graveyard, or pretty much any creature that has mana value 3 or less. So this could be built in a ton of different ways, especially if you want to focus around some of the bigger creatures. Maybe you impulsively draw and put them in your graveyard, or any number of ways to get them in there. So this is a really interesting deck, and I could definitely see this being a cool commander that people build around. Next up, we have Mutational Advantage, Overseer of Vault 76, and Vault 11, Voter's Dilemma. So Mutation Advantage is 1 green-blue instant. Permanents you control with counters on them gain hexproof and indestructible until end of turn, prevent all damage that would be dealt to those permanents this turn, and then proliferate. This being able to be cast at instant speed is perfect in pretty much any Simic deck, because all of those care about counters, really. I can definitely see why this is in the Mutant deck. There's going to be a lot of really cool play patterns with this card, and I think this could fit into a lot of different decks. Overseer of Vault 76 is 2 and a white legendary creature human advisor, First Contact. Whenever Overseer of Vault 76 or another creature with power 3 or less enters the battlefield under your control, put a quest counter on Overseer of Vault 76. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you may remove 3 quest counters from among permanents you control. When you do, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control, and they gain vigilance until end of turn. Again, here we see another white card that is putting counters on every creature. There are so many cool effects that care about you placing counters or just having counters on a creature to begin with, so being able to equip your whole board with them seems very, very good. In Vault 11, Voter's Dilemma, 2 white black, Saga Stage 1, for each opponent you create a 1/1 human soldier creature token. 2 and 3, each player secretly votes for up to 1 creature. Then those votes are revealed. If no creature got votes, each player draws a card. Otherwise, destroy each creature with the most votes or tied for the most votes. I see this being a very interesting card because you can very easily kill a lot of creatures, including your own, so you want to be careful how you play this. But if you don't vote, then everybody gets to draw a card, so that's probably not going to happen. I can see this being used definitely as a removal card, but this is very cool how it's templated. Next up is Ral Troubleshooter, Recon Craft Theta, and Ruthless Rad Rat. Ral Troubleshooter is 1 blue-black legendary creature, zombie mutant rogue. Once during each of your turns, you may cast a spell from among cards in your graveyard that was milled this turn. Tap him for each player to mill a card. This is a really cool strategy in blue. You know, obviously blue and black, all about milling, but I've never seen this where you can use this to cast cards from your graveyard that were milled this turn. This opens up a world of possibilities because there's a lot of mill effects that don't cost anything, so you can just mill some good stuff into your graveyard and then cast it. Especially, you know, one of the things that I hate milling the most is reanimation spells, so if you have this out on the battlefield and you accidentally mill one, you can use that to get something else back from your graveyard. Recon Craft Theta is 4 generic mana artifact vehicle with flying. When Recon Craft Theta enters battlefield, create a 0/0 blue alien creature token and put a +1/+1 counter on it. Whenever Recon Craft Theta attacks, proliferate. Okay, I love this card. Crew 2 for a 4/4 with flying. Yeah, I can definitely see this being amazing. Any deck that cares about proliferating, even if you don't have a lot of colors, this is colorless, so this is going to fit perfectly into it. I can see this card being played in a ton of different decks. And Ruthless Rad Rat is 1 black creature rat mutant with squad. Exile 4 cards from your graveyard with menace. So yeah, I mean, this card's pretty simple. You just exile a ton of stuff from your graveyard, make a ton of rats, and can kind of win. I can definitely see this in a dredge style deck where you're just putting as much in your graveyard as you can, and then just cast this and just exile all the junk out you don't need and make a ton of rats. So this is awesome. Any way you can kind of get around paying mana to get creatures or anything good is great, and this also has menace, so I can see this being a game ender and really powerful. So after that, we have Securitron Squadron, Sierra, Nuka-Cola's biggest fan, and Struggle for Project Purity. Securitron Squadron is 1 and a white artifact creature robot with Squad 3 and Vigilance. Whenever a creature token enters a battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Some of the squad creatures that enter the battlefield have an effect when they enter. This one is you want to cast as many of these as possible, so when other tokens enter, they're gonna get even bigger. This is definitely an engine piece, and casting as many of these as possible is probably gonna help you win the game more than a lot of other components in your deck. Sierra, Nuka-Cola's biggest fan, is 3 and a white legendary creature human citizen. The Nuka-Cola Challenge. Whenever 1 or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, put a quest counter on Sierra the biggest fan and create a food token. Whenever you sack a food, target creature you control gets +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of quest counters on Sierra. This is obviously a card made just to put in food decks. You know, you're going to be generating so much food in a food deck, and being able to just sack them and power up a creature, potentially the one that has trample, is just unreal. So this is an awesome card that I think any food deck should include. And we have Struggle for Project Purity. Enchantment. As Struggle for Project Purity enters battlefield, choose Brotherhood or Enclave. Brotherhood. At the beginning of your upkeep, each opponent draws a card. You draw a card for each card drawn this way. Enclave. Whenever a player attacks you with 1 or more creatures, that player gets twice that many rad counters. This is probably the best 4-drop enchantment I've seen so far. Both of these are pretty great. You can either have Brotherhood, so you get to draw a ton of cards, or Enclave, which could potentially kill an opponent if they attack you with, let's say, 5 creatures. They get 10 rad counters, and that could potentially just knock them out of the game. So this is an awesome card and awesome effect. I love cards with this effect where it's just like your opponents either take a penalty for attacking you or they just decide to attack someone else. Next, we have Survivor's Medkit, the Nipiton Lottery, and Thrill Kill Disciple. So Survivor's Medkit is one generic mana artifact with one tap, choose one that hasn't been chosen, Stem Pack, draw a card, Fancy Lads Snack Cakes, create a food token, or Rad away. Target player loses all rad counters, sacrifice Survival Medkit. This is pretty nice, honestly. 1 mana to draw a card in some colors is definitely worth it. You can use it to create a food, or if you're playing this in one of the Fallout decks, being able to just get rid of those rad counters seems pretty helpful. So I can see this being a pretty useful card in the decks. Outside, it's debatable. The Nipiton Lottery is 2 black-red sorcery. Choose a creature at random. You gain control of that creature until end of turn. Untap it, it gains haste until end of turn, then destroy all other creatures. Yeah, I mean, this is definitely a risk. Obviously, it destroys all creatures, so maybe you don't have anything good and want to steal one of your opponents. But yeah, I don't know about this. This is pretty interesting. Thrill Kill Disciple, 2 in a red, creature, human mercenary with squad 1, discard a card. When Thrill Kill Discipline dies, create a junk token. This is one of the squad cards I'm not as excited about. I could definitely see a use for this if you want to pitch a bunch of stuff to your bin, but I don't see as many uses in a lot of decks for this card, so I'm not as excited to see this one. Next up, we have Vault 87 Forced Evolution, Vexing Radgall, and Wasteland Riders. Vault 87 Forced Evolution is 3 green-blue. 1, gain control of target non-mutant creature for as long as you control Vault 87. 2, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. It becomes a mutant in addition to its other types. 3, draw a card equal to the greatest power among mutants you control. As far as Saga enchantment goes, this is kind of middle of the road for me. It's nice that you get to steal something for as long as you control it, and you get to make something big, possibly a mutant, to then draw a bunch of cards, but I'm not really as huge a fan. I don't think this is worth 5 mana potentially. There's a lot of great ways to do the things in blue, and let's say you cast this on turn 5. It's not till turn 8 that you're really getting that benefit. So, I mean, I could take it or leave it. I think this would be fun in the deck, but I don't know if I'd be looking at this card whenever I'm building another deck right away. Vexing Radgall is 1 in a blue, creature, bird, mutant with flying. Whenever Vexing Radgall deals combat damage to a player, that player gets 2 rad counters if they don't have any rad counters. Otherwise, proliferate. Yeah, I like this card. Birds that can proliferate are great. In addition, you're putting rad counters on players potentially, so I am all for this card. I think it's really great. And Wasteland Riders, 2 black creature human mercenaries with squad 2. When Wasteland Riders enters the battlefield, each player sacks a creature. Yeah, this is great. A 4/3 is cool, and then casting additional 4/3s for just 2, and then just having to sack a bunch of stuff seems really good. If you're playing this deck, you're probably making a ton of creature tokens to sack into, or you can just use it as a board wipe and then sack these, in response. So a lot of great benefit here. You basically get to make a bunch of creatures, and even if this is the one you're sacking, you can just keep your entire board while making everybody else sack theirs. Next up, we have Watchful Radstag, White Glove Gormander, and Wild Wasteland. So Watchful Radstag is my favorite card revealed today, specifically because it has Evolve. And Evolve reads, whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, if that creature has greater power or toughness than this creature, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. Then, whenever Watchful Radstag evolves, create a token that's a copy of it. Evolve is just such a fun mechanic because just for playing creatures, you get benefit, and making multiple copies of this, and then that makes another copy, and then you make 2 copies, and you're just making a ton of copies of this. It kind of has a Scoot Swarm feel effect, but it's whenever you play creatures, and eventually at some point, you're not going to play something bigger, because whenever you make a copy, it doesn't have the counters on it. You're just going to continue to make 2/2s, and that is perfect. White Gloved Gormander is 2 white-black creature human noble. While White Gloved Gormander enters a battlefield, create 2 1/1 white human soldier creature tokens. At the beginning of your end step, if another human died under control this turn, create a food token. Yeah, I mean, this is a food token card. I'm not super sure about this card. I'm sure there's more flavor here than anything else. Here's to us. It's time we move beyond beef. Obviously, they're eating humans, so I think it's a cool effect, but outside of food decks, I don't really think this is too great of a card, if we're being honest, because you specifically have to have humans in order to make that food. And Wild Wasteland, 2 in a red enchantment, skip your draw step. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top 2 cards of your library. You may play those cards this turn. Cool effect. There's a lot of cards that could really benefit from from this effect, you know, if you can stack up a bunch of these. So I think this is actually pretty playable, pretty good. It does keep stuff out of your graveyard, so if that's a concern, you know, I would be careful of that. But other than that, this is pretty cool. And the last new card of the day is Young Deathclaws, 2 black green creature lizard mutant with menace. Each creature card in your graveyard has Scavenge. The Scavenge cost is equal to its mana cost. So Scavenge works by you exile a creature card from your graveyard and then pay its mana cost. Put a number of +1/+1 counters equal to that card's power on target creature. Scavenge only is a sorcery. So it's a great way to take some of those cards that are in your graveyard and put a bunch of counters. And there are a ton of cards from Magic's history where this worked very well. In particular, there is a card from one of the Ravnica sets that does this, and just having another card in the deck that does this as well seems good. Or just putting this in any, you know, Golgari themed deck would also be pretty helpful. So we just got through all those cards, and I just want to say, if you aren't subscribed to my channel, please do so. I'm going to be putting out videos every day that we get more spoilers, probably up until tomorrow, Friday, but I'm very excited to do so. And these videos have just been received so well, and I just want to say thank you so much. So let's look at the reprinted cards. I'm just going to very briefly read off the cards because I don't need to explain these, but we did get some cool reprints today that are going to be found in these decks. So starting out, we have Assemble the Legion, Bastion of Remembrance, Biomass Mutation, Black Market, Captain of the Watch, Casualties of War, Corpsejack Menace, Deadly Dispute, Entrapment Maneuver, Fervent Charge, Hardened Scales, Specimen 73, which is Hornet Queen, Prime Merc Lurker Queen, which is Hallbreaker Horror, Impassioned Orator, Exorbitant Tide, Intangible Virtue, Keeper of the Accord, Lethal Scheme, Martial Coup, Morbid Opportunist, Pitiless Plunderer, Putrefy, Secure the Wastes, Stolen Strategy, Talisman of Conviction, Talisman of Hierarchy, Talisman of Indulgence, and Assaultron Invader, which is Walking Ballista. So in a similar fashion, I'm just going to run through the lands as well. So starting out, we have Canyon Slot, Diamond City, Dragon's Call Summit, Isolated Chapel, Maripose Military Base, Memorial to Glory, Myriad Landscape, Nomad Outpost, Shadow Blood Ridge, Smoldering Marsh, Tainted Field, Tainted Peak, Temple of Malice, Temple of Silence, and Windbrisk Heights. I want to say thank you so much for watching. If you made it all the way to the end, I super appreciate it. And if you would, please leave a comment down below on what your favorite card released today was, or maybe a card you came out a different day, or any kind of interaction would just be incredible. You know, talking about interaction, if you would please leave a like on this video, share this with a friend, or subscribe. That would just mean the world to me and help me out in a big way. So thank you. And today's Scryfall card of the day is Rietero Lantern. Lanterns carved from the mystic stone of the Ritio mines were said to light the ways of lost souls. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, I'll see you later, Planeswalkers.